And welcome to 5 Live Boxing. Tonight we're building up to the world heavyweight title clash between champion Wladimir Klitschko and Britain's Tyson Fury. Full commentary of the fight is on 5 Live from around 9:30 this Saturday evening. And judging by this week, almost anything could happen.
You are the wind beneath my wings for so long. For I was the one with the new glory, and I'll be the one with all the bells. Okay, people, thank you very much, and good night to everybody!
Well, that was Tyson Fury singing Wind Beneath My Wings yesterday. Steve Bunce joins us from London. Hello, Buncey.
Good evening, Ellie.
And also with us from Germany is our boxing correspondent, Mike Costello. Hello, Mike.
Evening, Ellie.
Have you ever known, in all your years, Mike Costello, in the fight game, have you ever known a build-up to a fight quite like this?
Well, if you remember, the build-up also includes Tyson Fury storming into a press conference in London 2 months ago dressed as Batman and scoring an early stoppage win over the Joker that morning. Then the standard for wacky behaviour was set pretty high pretty early on. But, you know, sometimes sportsmen and women say that they can't enjoy the major experiences of their career because at the time they were too deep in concentration, maybe they were too nervous. How many times have you heard them say, I wish I'd enjoyed it more at the time? You know, Tyson Fury genuinely seems like he's having a ball and he's reveling in doing things differently.
So, Steve, you've got Tyson Fury having the time of his life, loving being in the limelight. Wladimir Klitschko, he's seen it all before.
He has seen it all before and he's heard it all before to a degree. I mean, he's never been serenaded from the ring. He's been insulted, he's been spat at, he's been knocked off his paddle board by a challenger on a speedboat in an inland lake somewhere in Florida. He's had all of that. He's seen all of that. I think what's happened in the last 48, 24 hours is a bit of a charm offensive. And I think that's really throwing Wladimir, because Vladimir's all about experienced, dedicated and loving the game, and suddenly he's got a guy in the ring smiling, opening his eyes and blushing his eyelids at him and singing a bit of whatever that was, Whitney Houston or whatever. Come on, that's going to unsettle anybody, no matter how big and tough you are.
Bette Midler? I don't know.
I've got a pirate edition with Whitney. We shouldn't probably talk about that on air.
Who is counting? Listen, we want your thoughts on the fight as well. We're going to break it down between now and 9 o'clock, and we'll talk about a few other issues, and then we'll come back to Tyson Fury and Wladimir Klitschko before 9:30. But text us your views, 85058, or you can tweet us at 5LiveSport. So let us discuss the challenger first. Mr. Tyson Fury, Mike, tell us a bit about his career so far.
Well, before he turned professional, he had a solid amateur pedigree, much like Wladimir Klitschko himself, although Klitschko was more impressive in winning the Olympic super heavyweight title. For Tyson Fury, it was the ABA National super heavyweight title. He won that in London in 2008, and he was talking at the time of having designs on London 2012, but he decided to turn pro later that year, 2008, and as a professional now, he's unbeaten in 24 fights. He's had 2 standout wins for me, and both of them against Derek Chisora. The first of them was when he was the underdog going into the fight in 2011 when the British heavyweight title was at stake, and the rematch was a year ago this very weekend, coincidentally, when the European title was also on the line. And he is a hugely talented fighter. He's unpredictable, but he knows that Klitschko represents a huge step up in class for him.
But Mike, let's go back to Tyson Fury then. You've been speaking to him today in Dusseldorf. How did he seem to you?
Well, Steve was talking there about a slight change in tone in the build-up and the behaviour of Tyson Fury and the people around him this week. And as the fight gets closer, it seems to me, he's getting even more relaxed. And that's an attitude that I haven't seen in all my time covering these big fights across these weeks. They are fascinating to watch, the 2 men at stake, as they get closer and closer and go through all the set-piece events. But Fury genuinely seems to be getting more and more relaxed. His uncle and trainer, Peter Fury, told me today that he does believe that the nerves and this all-important element of fear will be present come fight night. But Tyson Fury himself told me that he's not overlooking how big this all is.
It is big. It's the biggest stage that you can get. Like I said, there's not another single sport in the world that can attract as much attention as a heavyweight championship of the world. Like I said, 50-odd thousand people in a football stadium, the world press, the world media, all over this. Every big broadcasting TV station in the world will air this. So this is as big as it gets, and it is what it is. It's the final hurdle. I'm not about to shy down, and what more can I say? I've trained, I've ate, I've slept, all in God's hands.
Vladimir Klitschko was telling us, Tyson, at his training camp a couple of weeks ago, that when fights like this are over, it takes him as much as 2 weeks to come back to being what he would describe as a normal person, and at a stage where he can be around his family. Do you have to get into character?
Same thing. I just said to the guys here before, it takes me about 7 to 10 days to get back to reality again, because after such a high, you've got to have a crash. You can't stay in a high forever. You've got to have a come down, and the come down is after the big fight.
And you have to turn yourself into some kind of nasty character that couldn't possibly be around children.
Basically, yes. That's the way it goes, you know. I wouldn't say a nasty character, but just snappy and on edge all the time until you calm down.
I was thinking back to what you said at the workouts yesterday. You said to the crowd around that 99% of you don't believe I can win. And I remember back to Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson in maybe the most famous upset of all time. And he used this phrase afterwards about Tyson's previous opponents. He said the problem was they all had 1 foot in the ring and 1 foot out of the ring. Do you think that's the state with Vladimir's opponents down the years?
Most definitely. They've all been sparring partners for him throughout his long career. And he's beat them up in the gym. They've already beat before they come here. They're looking for a couple of extra dollars to go into their pension fund, and they look for an easy road out. They give it a go for a couple of rounds, don't succeed, and they look for the floor. And if they don't do that, they're looking to settle on points, to think, oh, I'll give him a decent fight, but that's not my mentality.
And his last fight, Tyson, against Brian Jennings, the scorecards show that was the closest of his fights that went to points. Do we read into that maybe at 39 he's on the decline?
It is what it is. It's styles make fights, as we saw with Joe Frazier and George Foreman and Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Styles make fights. If he went on past performances, Ali wouldn't have stood a chance with Foreman, because Frazier gave him 3 nightmare fights, wobbled him, dropped him, beat him, and then look what Foreman done to Frazier, destroyed him twice, and then Ali beat the great George Foreman. So styles make fights.
And what do you think it is about your style that makes you suggest this could be the easiest night of your career? In particular, what is it?
I'll tell you what it is, right? If you could get 10 boxers in here and ask them what their nightmare opponent is, yeah, every one of them things would add up together and you'd have a massive Tyson Fury in front of you, because I'm everybody's nightmare opponent. Tall, rangy, counter-punch boxer, southpaw, orthodox switch hitter.
And you think that the occasion will suit you? I also work in track and field athletics, and there's a famous old coach says that at times like this you find athletes grow and some shrink, and you're one that grows.
I'm one of them who's had a miracle grow shoved on me when I get in front of them crowds. Like you say, it's float or sink in this situation, and I don't get anything let me get me down. I can only do my best, and that's it.
And what about on fight night itself? I remember Derek Chisora saying that he got really unsettled by the Klitschko brothers messing around. Before he fought Vitali, Wladimir messed him around with how his bandages were done and made him do them again. And he said that really set him off his path.
Well, that's just Chisora's mentality. I'll say now, if they want me to put the bandages on 15 times and give me 14 sets of gloves, not a problem. All these mind games, we're yet to see any of them, because we haven't fell for any mind games yet. I'm still waiting on some, so maybe we're going to have a couple of women in the changing room with no clothes on waiting for me or something. So maybe that might be a bit of mind games, because we haven't seen any yet.
And of course, it has the potential to change your life. How much will it change your life, and how much do you want your life changed?
Listen, it is what it is. My life is where it is at the moment. It's not going to change my life winning the heavyweight championship of the world. Why would it change? Money and glory only change foolish men, because it's all short-lived. If I had all the money in the world now, on a serious note, yeah, and I had unlimited funds, yeah, and I was super famous, what more could I do in my life than I already do? Is there any special food that I can get? Or any special beer or any special water I can drink? Maybe I can get some super water that makes me age stay where it is. We're all getting old, we're all heading to the same place. All the money in the world can't change it. Money don't make happiness anyway, I can tell you that from experience.
Would a long reign like Wladimir Klitschko's make you happy? Do you really want to leave a stamp on the sport of boxing for a long, long time after you're gone?
Vladimir's had a lot of defences, hasn't he? Yeah, he's been one of the longest reigning heavyweights in history. Will people keep talking about Wladimir long after he's gone on Saturday night? Will we keep going on about Vlad after he's gone? I don't think I'll mention his name. And I'm really ain't interested if people talk about my name when I'm gone. Because after you're gone, it's a past event, isn't it? Nobody really cares. After Saturday night, yeah, Sunday and Monday will be in the papers. But after that, it's old news, isn't it? It's chip paper. Today's headlines is tomorrow's chip paper. Nobody really cares anyway.
But do you really care? Do you want to be forgotten, as you say, Wladimir will be, or do you want to be revered in the way that Muhammad Ali and other champions have been?
I'm not really interested. You know, it is what it is. I'm a fighter. I fight for a living. And if they forget about me in 2 minutes, better to have a heyday and be forgotten about than never having a heyday at all.
Well, that was Tyson Fury speaking to Mike Costello. We will hear Steve and Mike's views on that in just a second. Now, let's talk more, Steve Bunce, about that interview with Tyson Fury. Goodness me, he gives you plenty to go at, doesn't he? He's quite a complex guy.
He is a very complex guy, and we make light of using expressions like, oh, he's a bit crazy, he's a bit of this, he's a nutcase, he's off the wall, he's a bit different. Tyson Fury is genuinely different. He's talked in very heartfelt terms during the last 5 or 6 years about some of the problems that he's had and some of the sort of mental issues that he's been dealing with, that he's seen people about. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but I think it's clear that Tyson Fury is out at that very edge. We can no longer make jokes. I've been on shows with you, Ellie, for the last 15 or so years, and if someone's a bit eccentric and a bit crazy, I'll say, Ellie, he's crazy. I'm not going to say Tyson Fury is crazy. I'd need a doctor to tell me that. But he is incredibly complex. You got little bits of it there. The stuff about we all end up in the same place. That was a great line, I thought. And then the line when Mike pushed him, and Mike was pushing him there, about how he wants to be remembered. And when he said, I'm not interested, there was nothing in his voice. He's not interested in how he's remembered. He's not interested in how he's remembered on Monday. He's not interested in how he's remembered at midnight on Saturday. I'm just a fighter. It's a kind of odd stance for any fighter. I can't remember any fighter I've ever interviewed, any interview I've ever read, where the fighter says anything even remotely like that. I don't know about you, Mike. I can't.
And Steve, what's been striking about this week, and just this week, not taking the whole of the build-up into context here, but just this week has been the consistency of Tyson Fury's mood and demeanour. He's been a happy bunny the whole of this week. He has seemed totally in control, from the press conference to the workouts yesterday at the airport when he had the German fans and the people checking in for their flight stopping off to watch him, melting as he sang there and as he leaned over the ropes talking to everybody, in stark contrast to the way Wladimir Klitschko conducted himself. And again today, around 24 or so members of the British media from all sorts of outlets, newspapers, television stations, radio networks as well. And I think, Steve, I'm getting more and more puzzled actually as the week goes on. I can't work out whether, you were talking there about there was nothing in his voice when he said, I don't want to be remembered. I can't work out. To this minute, I can't work out. Does that make him more dangerous?
Yes.
Or does it mean...
Absolutely.
Or does it mean, Steve, and this is what I'm wrestling with, that he doesn't want it enough?
No. Well, Mike, fun enough, I've had a debate with a cab driver on the way over here tonight, and he said to me, nah, he doesn't want to win, mate. And I said, well, I don't know how you've got that. No, I think that makes him quite dangerous. I do, Mike. I think he cares tremendously about this. He wants to win this. There's an incredible amount of pride at stake. There's all of that I'm a fighting man stuff, which he's desperate to show. This is the stuff he's been talking about. And I think one of the reasons why I think he's been so consistent over there, Mike, is that you and I have been around him a long time. He needs a bit of motivation. He's floated through so many of his fights. Even when he's been clipped, he's got up smiling, or he's shaken it off by grabbing the guy. He needs this. He's been saying for 3 or 4 years he needs a big fight, either with David Haye or with Klitschko, to get it going. And he seems to have hit the floor there. And bear in mind, I'm not there, I'm not around him. But he seems to have hit the floor there, and his shoulders have come down, and it's almost like he's opened his arms, closed his eyes and gone, I'm here. I've arrived. This is my promised land.
It's been
50,000 people. That's what it looks like.
A fascinating study here, Steve. There's not been a semblance of blinking in the headlights here.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And as you say, guys, you've been around him a long time. You go back quite a long way in the story of Tyson Fury. And Mike, one of his first achievements came at York Hall in 2008.
Yes, and that was the night of the ABA finals of that year. And it was some night too. If you look back at the winners on that one evening, Luke Campbell won one of the titles, went on to win an Olympic gold medal. Anthony Ogogo was another of the winners, went on to win Olympic bronze later on. Liam Smith, who's now the world champion at light middleweight. George Groves won one of the ABA titles that night. And last on the bill in the super heavyweight division, Tyson Fury, boxing for Jimmy Egan's academy in the Northwest, beat Damien Campbell of the famous Repton Club in East London. The finals were shown on BBC television later that weekend, and I interviewed Fury after his success right there at ringside, and this is what he had to say that night.
It means a very big thing to me. This is me dad, and I love him to death.
Fall like a man.
And if
Next world champion, look here. He's the man. Look out.
there you go, Dad said it for you. Well done. Thanks a lot, Dad. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Well, John Fury was certain there about his son's boxing future, but he recently told Mike that he wasn't always so keen on his son pursuing a career in the sport.
As a professional boxer, I was always in the other corner, taking fights at short notice against fellas what nobody take a fight against, you know. But I was a fighting man, I was game, I was tough, and I think they abused that fact. They thought this lad'll fight anybody, which I did, you know, and I had some good names on my record, but I was determined never to put my sons through anything like I went through, because then I had to do it to feed a family. I was doing 3 jobs at once, and boxing was just an add-on. But I said to myself, not having my lads being treated like this in this sport of boxing. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know he was training when he was about 12 or 13. I said, where's he keep going on his bike? She said he's probably got a girlfriend or something. So anyway, I got a call, left it at that, get a call from Withenshaw local amateur boxing club. Steve Egan's on the phone, didn't even know who he was at the time. He said, Mr. Fury. I said, yeah. He said, I know you don't want to hear this, and Tyson said that I wasn't to tell you, he said, but I think you need to come and have a look. We're at the boxing gym, he said, and your lad's special, he said. I said, I told my son never to go near boxing. I said, what's all this about? I said, if they're never going to be world class, said, mate, they're going to get abused. He said, listen, this kid's got it all. He said, he's knocking these lads about. He's had 40 fights. He said, he's only a kid, he's 13. He said, come and have a look at him. So in my mind's eye, I was going to go to the gym, slap him up the ear on, say, get in the car and don't go here again. But when I watched what he had on offer, I seen so much special from that day on. Anyway, supporter said, do you want to do this? I said, well, listen, I've been through the Miller boxing. I know what it's about. I said, I'm going to make sure you get looked after properly. Because at the time of speaking, didn't need the money anymore. I was comfortable. I thought, right, I'm going to look after you. I'm going to steer away from all the rubbish, all the politics, and fly straight in the sport. And here we are today. You trained hard, won everything, done everything. And here we are. It's all paid off in the end. It's been a long, long road.
And what will it mean, John, for your heritage, for gypsies, for the Irish travellers, generally, for the whole community?
He's making history. History's the biggest thing in the world. It beats money. There's only one thing in front of it, that's health. The rest, this is it. This is the highest you can go. There's never been anybody else in the travelling community done this, got this far in the heavyweight division ever. He's here, and to be honest with you, what can we say? The world will change, you know. They'll be looking at people in a different light to what they do today. Because Tyson's here, it's his destiny. The world needs changing, and this is the man to do it.
Well, that was Tyson Fury's father, John Fury, speaking to Mike. More on that in a second. 5 Live Boxing. And, Steve, as we heard John Fury there discussing with Mike...
Beautifully, by the way.
Yeah, he's a big representative, obviously, Tyson, isn't he, for the traveller community. What would it mean to them to have their first world champion?
Well, Tyson has been a very vocally a traveller. You know, he's never tried to hide it. He's never tried to suggest that he's settled, i.e. he's no longer living, you know, in a van. He's been right out there at the front, in the forefront. It's been some years since he was allowed to go off to horse shows and allowed to take up challenges because, as he told me a couple of years ago, he could fight a man every single day of the year. People would show up at his site every single day of the year to challenge him from different parts of Great Britain and Ireland. So in that sense, he's backtracked. He's never shied away from his traveller gypsy roots. He's never, and in all fairness, he's never toned things down. You know, he's had to take some outrageous abuse, some of the abuse he's received over the years. And what I think's happened is that the people inside the traveller community, the gypsy community, I think they have an incredible amount of respect for Tyson Fury. And now, to most people that don't have a lot of contact with the travellers or gypsy communities, perhaps it's hard to understand. But I think genuinely, his name on Twitter is Gypsy King. OK, now we're not over-egging it by suggesting that title would fit easily, comfortably on his head.
At the same time, Mike, we expect our boxers to be a bit controversial some of the time. And Tyson hasn't made friends in some quarters by some of the things he's said. He's made some remarks which were frankly pretty homophobic, weren't they? And just this week we heard him on Breakfast with George Riley saying everybody should take drugs and that would give us a level playing field.
But it goes back to what we were saying, Ellie, about him being a complex individual. And Steve was saying that sometimes, you know, it's beyond us to try to work out what's going on in the minds of people like Tyson Fury. In that interview with George earlier in the week also, he spoke about Klitschko being weak and must be shaking in his boots. Well, in a studio just next door to that, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Tyson Fury, and he said that Klitschko's too experienced to be bothered by all that I'm saying and all that's happening in the build-up. So contrasting answers to exactly the same question. He talks about 1 minute I feel like a devil, the next minute I feel like an angel. In a single interview, he can be charming and ridiculously articulate and then deeply offensive, almost in the same answer, let alone the same interview. And a very, very complex individual. But, you know, when the bell rings, he can fight.
We don't want bland boxers, I suppose, do we, Steve, really?
No, we don't want bland boxers. And take away about a dozen quotes. Tyson Fury is just about the perfect modern heavyweight. He drives a pink Bentley, convertible Bentley. He's topless most of the time. He's got a twinkle in his eyes. Take away the most abusive and the most obscene and the most ridiculous of his quotes, and he is absolutely perfect. He's brave to a fault. He's got guts. He's got guts to spare, and he's going in to what will be, I think, a heaving pit of 50-odd thousand people, and most of them will be cheering. Most of them, 45,000 or more, will be cheering for Klitschko. And you know what? He talked about having some grow. So what did he call it?
Miracle grow.
Miracle grow thrown on him. And you know what, Mike?
Other fertilisers are available.
You do with some of that on your head, Steve.
It's too late for that. It's a bizarre thing to say, but was there ever a better expression than being sprinkled with Miracle Grow when he gets in the ring? We thought David Hay sprinkled himself with Miracle Grow when he walked to the ring on a big occasion, but I have a feeling with Tyson Fury, he'll be like Nassim Hamid. Before he goes through the ropes, Mike, he's going to do a full 360 and he's going to suck in every single bit of atmosphere, suck in every single bit of flavour and love it. And at that point, he'll have a heartbeat of those bizarre Kenyan marathon runners that you love so much, i.e. it'll be barely ticking.
And you know, the delicious aspect of all of this week, Steve, is the unpredictable nature of Tyson Fury. He says that how can Wladimir Klitschko know what I'm going to do, because I don't even know what I'm going to do. And you will be asked later on in the programme, how do we see the fight going? Tyson Fury doesn't even know how the fight is going to go. When we were at the workouts at the airport yesterday, he was wandering around the ring at the end of his pad session.
Yep.
And he just couldn't bear to get out of the ring. He couldn't bear to remove himself from the limelight. So he grabs hold of the microphone from the local compere and he just shouts to his dad at ringside, "What shall I sing?" There was nothing prepared about this warbling yesterday in the wind beneath my wings. He said to his dad, "What should I sing?" It was just impromptu. He doesn't know what he's going to do from 1 minute to the next. And that's why Saturday night is just such a fascinating prospect.
And you will be able to hear full commentary of Tyson Fury against Wladimir Klitschko on 5 Live from around about 9:30 on Saturday night.
Hi everybody, you can listen to Tyson Fury beat Wladimir Klitschko live and exclusive on BBC Radio 5 Live.
And that was Tyson Fury himself. We're building up to the World Heavyweight title clash between the champion Wladimir Klitschko and the challenger Tyson Fury. Full commentary of the fight on 5 Live from around 9:30 this Saturday evening. Steve Bunce is with me, as is our boxing correspondent Mike Costello, who is out in Germany at the moment, and we want your thoughts on the fight as well. You can text us 85058 or you can tweet us at 5 Live Sport. But let's hear now from the defending WBA Super, IBF and WBO World Heavyweight Champion Wladimir Klitschko. The fight against Tyson Fury will be his 24th defence. And Mike, you went out to visit him recently at his training camp. Tell us a bit about what that's like.
Well, he began his preparations in Florida, where he has a home, but then he spent 5 weeks in a beautiful spa resort in a place called Going in the Tyrol region of Austria, which is where I went to. He's been training there as part of his build-up to big fights for more than a decade now, and he sets up camp in this sprawling hotel with a ring erected in the tennis hall, and his devotion and attention to detail is striking even after all these years, almost 20 of them as a pro now. And I remember when we were in Las Vegas earlier this year, Floyd Mayweather, in the build-up to his fight against Manny Pacquiao, was talking about one of the reasons he was getting ready to walk away was that training had become to him just like any ordinary job. And I mentioned this to Klitschko when we were in Austria together, and he told me what keeps him so driven these days.
Excitement to improve myself, because there is sides that I want to work on, and I know I can get better. And I haven't reached the peak of the mountain. I don't know what the peak is actually, but I haven't done it yet. That's my motivation, and health is my foundation. I can't do that because I still have health. This combination of two makes me excited every day and be very happy. It's so good to be in the training camp and be involved in a sport which I'm doing, the sweet science, boxing, and also be in the peak of my performance, of my capability of the sport. And I know that a lot of guys want to be there where I am right now, so it's like king of the hill. So you could be pushed from back, from the sides, from the front, and you have to be always alert and aware. And it's just so exciting to be in action, to have adrenaline rush in your blood. Because I know I'll be missing it.
Does it suggest then, Wladimir, that after all this time, and given that you've just signed a new 5-fight deal with your German broadcaster RTL, which might take you to 42 years of age if you're having 2 fights a year, that you can't live without boxing?
Well, I'm clear in my mind. It's not going to be forever, and sometimes I need to retire. And boxing is my life, but my life is not only boxing, and that's the beautiful part of it. And it's always going to remain as part of my life, because that's my foundation. That's what and how I learned the world, through sport, through traveling, through knowing people, countries, languages, mentalities, cultures. It's very exciting, and probably the most exciting university of the world, better than Columbia and Harvard and many others. Because traveling makes you definitely smarter and better.
Looking at the fight to come, what sort of challenge does Tyson Fury, different style, different size, present compared to David Haye 4 years ago?
There are two fighters that are uncomparable. Tyson Fury is much taller, heavier, younger, with a longer reach. He can box as a southpaw, different standings, and the regular. He doesn't have much of the punching power, but he has accumulation of the punches that he's throwing through every round. So it makes him different than any other fighters that I have faced and boxed before. It's definitely a challenge, and I think it's going to be one of the toughest fights I ever had. And that's how I'm looking at Tyson Fury's fight on November 28th.
Well, that was the champion, Wladimir Klitschko, speaking to Mike Costello. Steve, how good a champion has he been? Has he always had the credit for his talent and his ability and just his incredible stickability?
Well, we talk about, as he always had the credit. I would argue that even now some people are slow in coming forward in supporting him. I wasn't a massive fan first time round, especially when he managed to get himself beaten in twice in 13 months and quite concussively and quite nastily. I honestly believed in 2004 that he might be in a couple more fights, but that would be it. Well, how wrong so many of us were. 27 world title fights in total, and to disagree slightly with Tyson Fury, which is brave if you're in front of him, but easier if you're in a studio about 3,000 miles away. He hasn't only fought sparring partners. He's got this incredible thing where he keeps on fighting unbeaten guys. Tyson Fury will be the 6th of his last 7th who's unbeaten. He's fought 41 men that have lost 3 or fewer fights. And if you actually go through his record and if you analyse it, It is exceptional. You can compare it with anybody. What he hasn't had, Ellie, and what he doesn't want, and I found this extraordinary quote, Mike, what he doesn't want is he doesn't want a rival. He's never wanted a rival. And that's what really has made some of the heavyweights in the last 60 years so great. They've had their rivals, whether it was Clay Ali with Liston, or whether it was Ali with Frazier, or with Foreman, or whether it was Evander Holyfield fighting Riddick Bowe, whether it was Lewis against Tyson and against Evander Holyfield. They all seem to have had their rivals. He said, I don't want rivals. I want to crush my rivals. But if you go back, if you analyse the fights, fight by fight, and see what the guys did after, see what the guys did before, you have to just nod your head and say, this guy has been an exceptional champion, a brilliant champion, and what's more, he's a thoroughly decent human being, something that we seldom, if ever, attach to our boxing champions.
And even if we just use numbers to illustrate what he is, Steve, on Saturday night when he climbs through the ropes, that will be his 28th world title fight. No heavyweight champion in history has had that many world heavyweight title fights. So that, in one statistic sums up how special he's been. And a lot of talk has been made in the last few years and disparaging comments about the level of his opponents. But Steve, I picked up this clipping from Boxing News in 1942. The man who's had 27 world title fights alongside Wladimir Klitschko at the moment is Joe Louis.
Yeah, some of those
and this is from 1942 in Boxing News, talking about, the piece was headlined Heavyweights and Hopes. It says, poor old Joe will be just a lucky champion who had the good fortune to reign at a time when there weren't any first-class heavies or even second-class heavies. Now, when you consider how Joe Louis is revered today, and that was being written at the height of his career in 1942. So sometimes it takes perspective. Jonathan Banks, Wladimir Klitschko's trainer, was saying on 5 Live Boxing a couple of weeks ago that he thinks it'll take until Vladimir's retired and people, put some distance between his career and what they're thinking now, and then they can make up their minds.
And just one thing quickly, Ellie, and I hope this wasn't where you were just about to go, Mike, is the one thing that you have to love Vlad for is his absolute, complete honesty. He has said all along, I know that I'm boring. I'm doing what I have to do to win. He's always said that. He's never, ever talked about how he's going to knock somebody out or what he's going to do or made any bold, stupid, ridiculous claims. He has always approached it this way. Certainly since 2004 and his first fight with Manny Stewart when he got knocked out by Lamont Brewster. Since then, we've had a man that puts winning over everything. And put over everything means sometimes excitement and certainly health.
And back in 2004, his own brother, who he still looks up to, Vitaly, who's now mayor of Kiev, told him to retire in 2004. He's unbeaten in 11 years now and hasn't been knocked down in 10 years. It's staggering how he's revived himself.
It is 5 Live Boxing, and we asked for your texts and tweets, and you've been sending them in. Peter says, the boxing experts on 5 Live, that's you two, suggest there's more to Tyson Fury than the antics of a clown. Hope he gives a good account of himself. Tom says Tyson Fury uses a WWE-style build-up to throw opponents off their stride and entertain to sell tickets. He is a good boxer and will win. Edward says, love him or loathe him, Tyson Fury was absolutely fascinating to listen to on 5 Live. I hope his boxing on Saturday is as good. And E. Martin from Ipswich, too clever by half. Tyson Fury is going to look awfully silly when he gets knocked down on his backside on Saturday night. We'll talk more about this before 9:30. Right, before we finish, 4 minutes to go, let's get back to Tyson Fury against Wladimir Klitschko. And one interested observer this weekend will be the rising star of the British heavyweight scene, Anthony Joshua. Fury has called Klitschko boring and said he's bad for boxing. Does Joshua share those sentiments?
If you wanted someone to look up to, look up to Wladimir Klitschko. My opinion of Tyson Fury, if you're fed up with Klitschko, beat him. Simple. Everyone says the same thing. That's what I've noticed. Klitschko is boring for the sport. He's killing the heavyweight division. Then they get beat. Go out there and beat the guy if you're fed up with him. If it's that easy, go out there and beat him. You've got 12 rounds to do it and you've had 10 weeks to train for it. So that's what I say, enough of the talking. Let's see some action. And Klitschko seems to always hold his head high and defend what he's worked for. 10 years as champion is elite. It comes with glitz and glamour, celebrity status. To be the heavyweight champion of the world is a real glamorous thing, and he's managed to maintain his discipline and take care of his belts for the last 10 years, and That's remarkable.
Who are you picking to win that fight?
Well, how great would it be if Fury won? You know, he's from Britain. He can talk the talk. He will say, I told you I'm great. I told you I'm going to beat Klitschko. He'll back up his words. So that would be great. But reality, logically, Klitschko, he's got so much experience. He's got the day he started as a professional to the day he won the belt. That's invaluable experience. Then he's got the time from when he won the belt to the defence of 10 years as heavyweight champion of the world. You can't buy that experience. So that's why I'm going to pick Klitschko, because of that experience he's got over Tyson Fury.
Prediction? What round?
It can potentially be 5 or 6.
Do you think Fury's going to come out fighting, or do you think he's going to try and fiddle his way through?
I think he'll come out fighting. I think the adrenaline gets you, you know. It takes over your body when it comes to fight night. Fury does throw a lot of punches. For a big guy, he moves a lot, so he says it, he doesn't lie, he does move a lot, he throws a lot of punches. So I think that's just naturally how he fights as well. So I think he will come out and, you know, fiddle with the jab, throw right hands, left hooks, and it'll be great. It'll be a good fight. I hope so. I really do hope it is.
Well, that was Anthony Joshua speaking to BBC Sports' Ben Durs. Mike, Steve, how on earth are we going to call this? How will this fight unfold, do you think, Mike?
Well, I think it depends. We know down the years what Wladimir Klitschko is going to do, so it depends on the attitude of Tyson Fury. Now, it was interesting in watching the workouts yesterday, and you might say, why are you taking any notice of workouts? Because they're hardly likely to show each other what they're going to do. But Jonathan Banks, who was holding the pads as Klitschko's trainer, was dancing around the outside of the ring for most of the time, and Klitschko was cutting off the ring space. And Tyson Fury, who again couldn't help himself, whatever his uncle and trainer Peter Fury asked him to throw, he just threw what he wanted to throw at that given time, and he spent a lot of time moving around as well, which suggested he might be on the move. Now, if he watched the fight a couple of defences ago against a Bulgarian called Kubrat Pulev, who was touted as the most difficult challenger for many years to Wladimir Klitschko, now he got on the offensive very early and shook Wladimir Klitschko with no more than a jab inside the first 25 seconds of the first round. So Klitschko can be shaken early on. But as far as Tyson Fury is concerned, you know, the most venomous fighter he's had coming at him is Derek Chisora, and Wladimir Klitschko is a world away from that in terms of his power and his fitness.
Steve?
A lot's going to be, we'll know a lot once that first bell sounds, Mike, when we're 6, 7 or 8 feet away. We'll see how Tyson Fury reacts to that crowd, and we'll see how he reacts, Wladimir, once Tyson runs at him. I see, and I hate to say this, I see a very typical Wladimir performance, but with the atmosphere rich, heavy and glorious.
And you'll be able to hear full commentary of Tyson Fury against Wladimir Klitschko with all that atmosphere on 5 Live from around about 9:30 on Saturday night.